Hey all, Grollo here, coming at you live from unhinged.gg. Just about time for the big red suit to come down the chimney here. Hope those celebrating are more ready than I am. I'm just going to keep sipping on Turkey Hill eggnog and jamming to Christmas music, and it'll all work out. So today I wanted to deep dive into Star Citizen's proximity problem. Some other terms you may hear to describe this are player density or causality or entity congestion or some combination or mashup of all these terms or related ones. I've gotten several comments that prodded onto this topic in recent and in older videos. Here's a few of them, but I know I'm missing some. Hip Hop Grinch. Oh man, that's an awesome name. Says coming here after the Space Tomato podcast at the 1 hour and 30-second mark. You said you don't think the servers can authorize over too small of a space. I think that they will be able to shrink their authoritative area down to the size of individual rooms. I say this because at SitCon 2023 server meshing demo, that's exactly what they did. They had a small corridor split into 3 small zones. These small zones shouldn't need to be any smaller because how many players' entities can you fit into an 8x8 room? The limitation becomes physical space rather than a server limitation. I remember that presentation very well. I was super pumped during CitizenCon 2023 at that demonstration. And Sanctrid says, I wonder if Grollo has looked into the container system in respect to dynamic server meshing. With dynamic server meshing, my understanding is that even a single ship container can be its own server. An area on a planet can be multiple servers. They demoed this in 2023 when they showed off server meshing for the first time. With dynamic server meshing, we were supposed to get to the point where they can allocate, and I forgot to click more, but you get the idea. Great questions, great questions, both of you, Sanctrid and Hip Hop Cringe. Now, Sanctrid and I continued the conversation a bit in the comments, but I'm going to repeat some of what we discussed here for the benefit of all. And what Hippogrinch was talking about with shrinking servers down to rooms is similar to what Sanctrid is talking about with servers governing ships. But in all these cases, what you're really trying to do is hide players from one another. That's why we're talking about small rooms and ships, because the moment you blow this open, that's when the problems start. So why does any of this matter? Why are ships or rooms beneficial? Why are wide open spaces like a field a problem? Well, let's approach this from another direction. Let's assume that money is no object. Let's assume CIG has the bankroll of Apple, and they don't even care if they make money. They're just going to run this game out of the goodness of their heart. Okay? What might they do, and what might we do if we were making the decisions if money were no object, and in order to give this game like all the horsepower it needed to run as perfectly as possible for everybody all the time? What might we do? One thing we might decide we want to try is just giving every player their own dedicated server, right? You get a server, you get a server. What does that look like? I've kind of drawn this out here. Now, we have a ship. We have 6 players on that ship, and each one of them have their own dedicated server represented by these boxes I've drawn on the screen around P1, P2, P3, right? Those are the players. Now, let's just talk about some examples here. How would player 2 know that player 1 is running down a hallway in that ship past them? I don't know what ship this is. Let's assume it's like a bigger capital ship or something. How would player 2 know that player 1 just ran past them in the hallway if they're on different servers like this? Well, the actions that player 1 is taking is going to be propagated to the entity graph and to the replication layer, which I should have drawn here. So replication layer. There it is. So it's going to be propagated there. And replication layer, which is reading from the entity graph. And remember, the replication layer is also a large number of servers. So it's going to propagate it back to P2. Right? So player one's actions have changed state on the replication layer and then within the entity graph, and that stuff is being propagated to player two. Now, since all these players are on the same ships, what you're going to have happen is just propagation between all of these. Basically, everything happening on this ship at all times is going to be kind of mirrored and copied across all of these individual player servers, right? So like if player 6 is sitting in the pilot seat, player 5 can observe that and know that that's happening. And so what you're seeing here is like the network traffic and the burden that we were placing on the network increases as we add servers. Like if we added server 7 over here for another player, that's more network traffic, right? Now there's another stream of data flowing from 7 to a replication layer into the entity graph. Also keep in mind that, like I said, like the replication layer is going to consist of many servers, right? So even this replication layer is going to have different copies of data being streamed to it. There's a bunch of bits flying around this network as we add servers. Now, what compels us to want to hand out individual servers in the first place? Compute, right? Like we want more computing power. We want every player to get 30 FPS on the server at all times, never dip. But as we can see, bringing in more compute shifts burden to the network whenever all that compute must be aware of each other. Now, don't miss that. That's the important bit. When compute must be aware of each other. Causality is the term that comes to bear here, which is the relationship between cause and effect. If the action of one player may impact another player, that's whenever the various compute nodes need to be aware of it, right? If one player is walking down the hall, and that means on my server, it must be sending me information so that I can render that player walking down the hall. That's cause and effect. That's why rooms matter. If some players are in a room behind a closed door, the chances of them impacting me has diminished, right? I no longer have to render what that player's doing. Unless there's some mechanic in the game where they could like shoot through the door and hit me, maybe something like that. But I no longer have to render that person, so them being in their own little room has benefit, at least until they open the door. And I must be able to see inside the room now, right? Now there is cause and effect there. What's an even better barrier is great distances, which Star Citizen will have plenty of. And it'll definitely be able to use that to its advantage because, things like a flimsy door, as we just pointed out, that it's not necessarily a great insulator between cause and effect because as soon as that door opens up, now I need to be aware of everything happening inside the room, and it may not be super fast to move authority between servers like that. Just like opening and closing a door probably can't shift authority quite that fast. And so the safer bet would just be for this ship to be operating on a single server. It's going to, as spaces shrink, it's harder to assign authority like that. So anyway, I'm getting a little ahead of myself. Great distances, easy. Bringing people together close, more difficult. All right. Anyway, back to this example here. So we have 6 players in this example. We obviously don't, 7 now. I've added a 7th one. We obviously don't need 7 servers to handle 7 players. We're just kind of being absurd. So let's collapse into one server. One server should be able to handle all of our players. We're going back to 6 players here. Obviously, we have a single server. We have our entity graph. We have the the replication layer, which I forgot to draw originally. I drew that terribly. Now, since we eliminated the majority of the servers, we now have a stream of data between the entity graph and the replication layer. We have a stream of data between the replication layer and our single game server. So we've substantially reduced the load on the network, right? Life is good. The network's not taxed. We're running all of our players. Everything is working as we would like until we start piling more players in here, right? We're piling 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, all the way up until like whatever, 99, and we keep going. At some point, we're going to run out of compute. One game server is not going to be able to keep up with all the players if we keep adding them, which is why we have static and dynamic server meshing to begin with, the ability to pull in more compute on demand. So it's back to the drawing board. So we're going to do exactly what we've been talking about. We're going to split the server, right, so that we can handle our 172 players in this example. We got 1 through 99 on server 1. We got 100 through 172 on server 2. The load on the network's not going to be bad because, we got one stream of data that's going to each server. Now we got like kind of 2 streams of data. Even if all the information on the ship is replicated across both servers, like the network's going to be more than capable of keeping pace with that. And both servers are going to be able to run compute for the people on their servers, and everything's good. So we're good, right? System's working as intended. We're not being ridiculous like we were before. Let's mess things up again. So let's say we have a bunch of these ships, right? And they've all landed in a field on Microtech. So this is a field. We've all landed in. Now, let's say we have 50 ships that all landed in this field. The Microtech server is actually what's going to be managing these ship entities, right? Going back to the whole container system that we talked about in one comment, like you're going to have maybe the stand system, which is running on a game server, and then nested within that, you're going to have Microtech, which has a server dedicated to it. And as we've been talking, within the Microtech server, we're going to have a server for each of these ships. But when all these ships come together in this field, it's the Microtech server that's actually managing the interaction of these ships. And basically, each ship is an entity. The Microtech server is managing 50 entities. That's child's play. Now, keep in mind, there's around 200 players in each of these ships, but that doesn't matter to the Microtech server, right? It's only concerned with the properties of the 50 ships. This is one of the powerful things about CIG's technology. It's back to the small room example. The actions of the players in that confined space are inconsequential to the stand server. It doesn't care what's going on inside the ship. All that matters are the properties of each ship. Even if there's a player sitting in one of the turrets on one of these ships and he's spinning the turret around, to the stand server, that just manifests as a property of the ship, at least until somebody outside the ship looks through the turret glass and sees the player sitting in the turret seat. Now you've kind of muddied the waters there, but we're going to ignore that for now. All right, let's just skip over that for now. But I have some bad news. The pilots of all 50 ships just agreed to a concert. And there's a mosh pit forming in the field between these 50 ships. As each of the ships open their doors, and 10,000 players converge onto the field. Right? I'm drawing a mess of players in the middle of the field here. They're all going to Mosh Town. Alas, or Atlas is a service that CIG has on their roadmap. I don't think it's there yet, but the future purpose of Atlas is going to be to kind of govern dynamic server meshing and identify situations like this that demand more compute. So Atlas kicks in. It's going to command dynamic server meshing to like leap into action and begin like allocating servers at this mess as fast as possible. It starts spreading the 10,000 people that just flooded out of these ships across as many servers as it can, right? But like I said, the 10,000 people are in an open field. So if we go back to the talk about causality, every player stands to impact every other player. And so all these servers must start sharing the same state, same information. Distance is not protecting us in this scenario. So, shit. I've tried to represent that here on this drawing with our field of ships and all the players running out into the mosh pit, and the squares underneath the ships represent game servers that Atlas is throwing at the situation here, and I've kind of projected from each of those boxes up to into the field. So like, just use your imagination here a little bit. Like each of those stick figures represents like a ton of people that are being rendered by that particular server. So as you can see, like each server is responsible, because of the way dynamic server meshes are intended to work, like each server is responsible for a subset of the people in the mosh pit, but the entire mosh pit matters to everybody. So all of the state changes in information and the directions the players are moving and which elbows they're throwing and all this stuff matters to all of them. So you're going to wind up with a ton of state changes happening in real time that needs propagated down to the replication layer, persisted to the entity graph, replicated across every game server and all the replicants. And as we were talking about back in the very first example, the network is going to begin to buckle under this pressure. In the first slide, we reduced the network pressure by reducing the number of servers because we were being ridiculous anyway, so we didn't need that many. So we reduced the number of servers, we reduced the network pressure. But here, that's not an option. We need this computing power because we have 10,000 players in the field moshing. But the network can't sustain it, right? We're doomed. No, really, we're doomed. There's no fix for this eventuality. Not really. Now, there's optimizations that CIG can make to defer it, make it harder to hit this ceiling. They can do things like multicasting between, the servers so that there's like less individual streams of data going to each one. However, keep in mind, like if you're familiar with these terms I'm throwing out, like multicast and unicast and that kind of stuff, keep in mind that it won't be super straightforward to do like a multicast optimization here, simply because of how dynamic server meshing is. Like sometimes it'll make sense to multicast, other times it'll make sense to unicast. So, there's all kinds of implementation details that are going to make that not trivial to implement. But it's certainly a possible optimization. And over time, I expect a lot of these kind of optimizations to be made and performance wins to be had. And that ceiling of like the breaking point will be raised pretty high, hopefully. But the ceiling will, in fact, always be there. There's no way that we're ever going to blow the ceiling off the roof or off the top. Like we're not going to be able to play in a like open sky box. Or who knows? Maybe quantum computing will arrive just in time to save us from 10,000 players in a mosh pit on Microtech. So there you go. Your first use case for quantum computing. Everybody's been wondering, like, what are we going to use this for? Moshing. Moshing on Microtech. Damn. I need to coin that. Put it on a t-shirt or something. Anyway, to all those folks who were prodding on this topic in the comments, to anyone else who just got caught up in this discussion thanks to this video, I hope this was informative, enjoyable, maybe a little interesting. And don't forget to drop your thoughts on this in the comments below. I'd love to continue this discussion and maybe learn some more together from each other. Another place to continue the discussion is with us on Discord. Go check out unhinged.gg. Now, go check it out. Alrighty. This was fun. I enjoyed putting this together. And I hope you all have a very Merry Christmas, and I will see you soon. Rollo out.